After the failure of the northern expedition, Liangguang became a battleground between various factions. One of the first factions that took advantage of the fall of the Kuomintang was that of Lu Rongting and his old Guangxi clique. Lu Rongting had once ruled over Guangxi as its governor, but he had been pushed out by the KMT during the Yegui Wars. He tried to return after Chen had rebelled against Sun, but lost to Li Zongren's new Guangxi clique. Now, cooperating with the Jili, he would return to Guangxi once again, becoming a member of Sun Chuanfang's League of Eight Provinces. Chen Lianbo and his merchant corps became another major player in Liangguang. He had been appointed mayor of Guangzhou by the Germans during their intervention and occupation of the city. Later, his position was recognized by the Jili, one of many German demands. To secure his position further, he invited many former Guangdong leaders back, be it former Kuomintang members, federalists, or former regionalist warlords. This colorful cast of characters was of course only loosely aligned with Chen. The last major faction is that of Shen Hongying, a former subordinate of Lu Rongting. He was appointed governor of Guangdong by Sun Chuanfang and reinforced by League troops to give Sun a firm grip over the region. Shen's allies are only loosely aligned to him, and he is reliant on Sun payrolling his forces. Following the 1932 Shanghai uprising, Sun Chuanfang's control over Liangguang loosened. He was forced to recall most of his troops out of the region, allowing Lu Rongting to push Shen out of Guilin. Following this, Lu Rongting was awarded the title of Viceroy of Liangguang by Wu Paifu and the government in Beijing to reduce Sun Chuanfang's power in the region. In 1934, Lu Rongting would die, leaving behind the viceroyalty in the hands of his adoptive son, Lu Yuguang, the young marshal of the south. He is viceroy in name only, as Liangguang is disunited and at threat of constant incursions by Kuomintang remnant cells. Now, the two Guangs lie in a careful balance, as Sun could always send troops over the border to fully rope Liangguang back under his control. However, would something happen to Sun, Liangguang is bound to erupt into war. The two provinces, while united on a map, are much disunited in reality. Guangxi, compared to Guangdong, is poorer. Its agricultural sector is heavily focused on cash crops production, in turn giving little to no benefit to the people. The missing infrastructure and rampant banditry, of course, hardly help in that. Guangdong, on the other hand, while developed, has grown somewhat uneven, mainly befitting foreign powers and their compradors. Our export-focused economy has already been hurt hard by the American Great Depression and can surely not survive another round of international economic instability. As in almost all places in China, literacy is, except in the major urban centers, hard to come by. Added to all this plight, of course, is the completely disunited political scene Liangguang finds itself in. While Liangguang, together with Hunan, following the 1932 Shanghai uprising, decoupled more and more from Sun Chuanfang's grip, they are still at his mercy should he manage to recover his grip on power. Add to that Shen Hongying's increasing cooperation with Sun. Luckily, Shen's clique isn't the strongest force in Guangdong. The Ye army, led by Ye Zhu and following Chen Chongming's Public Interest Party, have ballooned in size ever since their return. Ye Zhu in particular has built himself a web of alliances extending all the way into the old Guangxi clique. He has connections with Lin Hu, a powerful figure in Ma Ji's young Guangxi faction, who currently commands forces around Yulin. But he also has connections with Hong Zhaolin, who had been dispatched by Sun Chuanfang to reinforce Shen, but is only loosely allied with him. He commands forces around Chaoshan. There's also Deng Benying, the king of Chongya, who is in a tacit alliance with the Ye army. He had ruled over the island until the Kuomintang forced him out, but with German support, he had returned. Lu Yuguang is not fully in charge in Guangxi. The young Guangxi faction, a quadrumvirate made up of its founder Ma Ji, Liu Jilu, Lin Hu, and of course Lu Yuguang, though he commands little influence, are the true rulers. The young Guangxi faction was the true power behind Lu Rongting. as he was more or less a figurehead due to his advanced age. But they do heavily work together with local assemblies and aren't just bandit clan leaders as is often thought of them. The young Guangxi faction has close to no control over Guangdong and is already struggling to keep the western region around Baise from falling under Kuomintang control. For now, the carefully crafted balance by the Jili has withstood its greatest trial in the 1932 Shanghai uprising, but will this balance also withstand the next crisis? As the long-awaited project of connecting Hangzhou with Nanchang, the so-called Jiegan Railway, finished, it did not, as was hoped, soothe public opinion on the German cooperation, but, due to the selling of said railway, began anti-concessionist protests all over the League. This instability is not only fueling the Mingan zone, which is still resisting League encirclement campaigns, but also the governor of Anhui province, Chen Tiaoyuan. He has been resisting Sun Chuanfang with the help of Beijing ever since the Shanghai uprising and the increasing cooperation between China and Germany. Now, with the protests increasing further and further, he has finally fully broken with the League. This instability is of course also felt here in Liangguang, as anti-concessionist protesters are listening to the calls by federalists and progressive reformers for measured changes. With Sun Chuanfang's power decreasing even further, many in Liangguang are gearing up for the decisive conflict to decide the future of the twin provinces. However, news has reached us that the unstable economy in Germany has now collapsed. With China losing yet another big trading partner, its already struggling economy will deteriorate even further. Guangzhou has also been hit hard as exports, already decreasing, have collapsed, and due to wealthy merchants cutting back on their patronage, the ongoing unrest has accelerated. With the League cracks widening, the smiling tiger falls. Sun Chuanfang has been shot. With this, an already tenuous situation has become a lot more dire. With Nanjing in chaos, Chen Hongying's last lifeline had been cut. His subordinates, only loyal through Sun's patronage, are becoming more and more displeased. All the while Hang Zhaolin is moving back to Chen Zhengming's camp. With everything spiraling out of control, the illusion of Qing hegemony shatters. The central government has lost the carefully crafted order over the country. With the collapsed order, the Mingan insurgency has started an armed uprising in the south of Fujian and Jiangxi, while Qie Shiyuan staged a coup in Nanjing, taking the reins to everyone's displeasure. With this, the once powerful and mighty League has collapsed. With Liangguang now alone, its status quo will not last. The twin provinces will be plunged into chaos. With order collapsing, the Mingan insurgency rose up and sent General Chen Mingshu and his 10th Division south to secure Guangdong, or at least hold their southern flank. But he was not the only one invading. To the west, Li Zhongren, leading his 7th Division, has invaded Baise from Guizhou and is now preparing to march on Nanning. Liu Yuguang has decided to reinforce Guangxi, leaving Guangdong to its own devices. The provincial assembly in Guangdong proved to be a headache for Chen Lianbo, and he was approached by Chen Chongming to give him the floor of the assembly immediately. His offer was to be appointed governor of Guangdong by the assembly, and with this power he would fully secure Guangdong. Chen Lianbo, with little room to maneuver and knowing that Chen Chongming, even retired, has a lot of support in the Guangdong army and may as well usurp the province anyway, accepted. Chen Chongming is named governor by a divided assembly and a reluctant mayor. The Ye army quickly moved to secure Guangdong. They crushed Chen Mingshu's small insurgency and forced Chen Hongying out of Shaoguang. Deng Benyan had a firm grip over Chongya and had declared his support for our cause in the light of our victories. Now we are preparing to march on Nanning to finally unite the two Guangs. The young Guangxi faction is struggling to break Li Zhongren, but in the end managed to force him out of Baise, but they have drained their resources. It was barely a struggle. As we quickly made our way to Nanning, many Guangxi generals saw where the wind was blowing and defected to our side. With the fall of Nanning, Chen Zhongming is now the master of Liangguang, and the Federalist movement, long thought to be extinguished, is blooming once again with reinvigoration. Liangguang is finally united and no longer the battleground of warlords. However, the provinces and their economies, which were already hit hard by the Great Depression and Black Monday, now lie in utter ruin. The once prosperous city of Guangzhou is in financial chaos, and a constant increase of military spending has not helped in that. With peace having been established in the twin provinces, it is time to cut back on military spending until we have recovered. Together with other measures, this will help us stabilize the economy. We also will begin a 3-year plan in order to strengthen Guangxi and Guangdong. Our government wants to eradicate illiteracy in China, so let us begin rural education efforts as well as expand the Guangzhou universities. With this, we are sure to recover. Together with the Ye army clique, the Zhigongdang, or Public Interest Party, forms the backbone of the Grand Republican Alliance in Liangguang. At the head of the alliance sits Chen Zhongming. He started his political career in the short-lived Guangdong Provincial Assembly in 1909 and later joined the Xinhai Revolution, becoming an important figure in Sun Yat-sen's constitutional protection movement, but later betraying him due to the differences in their approach to reunification. After driving Sun's KMT out of Guangdong, he briefly became its governor before resigning in 1923 due to the threat of invasion by Sun's allied forces in Yunnan and Guangxi. Chen resided in Haiphong, where he would found the Public Interest Party. After being expelled from mainland China by Chiang Kai-shek in 1925, he would spend his time in exile in Hong Kong before being invited back by Chen Lianbo in the wake of the German intervention and the failure of the Northern Expedition. Having spent his time building up the Ye army, he now, after all this time, finds himself back at the head of not just Guangdong, but also Guangxi. He also leads the Federalist movement, which only recently returned to the limelight, mostly as a means for warlords to seek autonomy from the central government. But now we will reinvigorate the movement and return it to its true philosophy of provincial autonomy, constitutionalism, and of course, Chinese reunification. And we would soon be joined by new allies. As anti-concessionism sweeps through the country, conservative hysteria grew. This would culminate in the 7 Gentlemen incident in Shanghai, as 7 prominent figures of the National Salvation Federation would be arrested and extradited to Beijing, where they now would await trial. The NSF is a member of the Federation of Chinese Democratic Parties, the successor to the United National Construction League, which had faced a brutal crackdown following the 1932 Shanghai uprising. However, due to a lack of response to the incident by the FCDP, in particular its biggest component, the Chinese Constitutionalist Party, many disgruntled FCDP members have gathered in Guangzhou. There they would form the Chinese Democratic Socialist Party. This new party is led by former members of the National Renaissance Society, a clique of left Liangists of the CCP, Zhang Junmai and Zhang Dongsun. Zhang Junmai and Zhang Dongsun were both mentored by Liang Zichao, and many consider Zhang Junmai as Liang's de facto successor. Zhang had spent time in Germany and would be enamored by the SPD. He is, after all, the epitome of a social democrat in the Western sense. Now, with the creation of the DSP, the PIP would have serious competition as both parties vie for national leadership, but as of now, they need to cooperate as China is still divided. In order to fully reorganize Liangguang, we will have to reconstruct Guangxi, as the province saw most of the fighting. After appointing Liu Zhenhuan as its governor and reinforcing our position in Guangdong, it is now time to turn towards the Federalist project. Chen will now begin a new Federalist conference to decide the future of Liangguang and his sovereign government. We have gathered a lot of allies in the south, be it intellectuals, former Beijing assemblymen, and various regionalist warlords. All of them strive for different ideals and share different hopes. Chen Chongming stands at the center and together with his Ye army is the person holding the government together. After the conference, he is elected president and is replaced by his longtime benefactor Chen Xiru as governor of Guangdong. However, Chen Xiru, already in an advanced age, would shortly pass away, not even being able to take up the post. He would be replaced by Chen Qiyu, a trusted organizer of the PIP. Now, the most important matter stands before us, a matter that has once divided Chen Chongming and Sun Yat-sen, the matter of unification. Chen's stance was always that the South should peacefully reunify with the North. However, since then, a lot of time has passed, and Chen has realized that the topic of unification is not as simple as it seemed back then. But for now, he will try to pursue the path of negotiation and establish another constitutional protection movement to unify the South against the North. While we have been discussing the situation in Liangguang the entire time, let us look and see what has come of the Geely Order in China. Anqing, supported by Zhang Zuolin, came out victorious in the League War. However, after failed negotiations with Jiang Tongshang's Shandong clique over the issue of Jiangsu, Anqing has broken with the Anguo Jun as Zhang Zuolin had backed his old dog in Shandong. In the end, Chen Taoyuan had defeated Zhang. In Beijing, the Manchu faction would try to coup the Geely government, but Yan Xishan, the only person the Manchus could place their hopes on, would end up betraying them, and the Qing monarchy that had been forced upon us by the Germans would be completely purged. Yan Xishan himself would be overthrown by the Kuomintang. To our north, the Kuomintang had won in the provincial elections and pushed Zhao Hengti out of his province, and to our east, Tang Jiao, our federalist ally in Yunnan, has pushed the Kuomintang out of Guizhou, securing his 2 provinces for the federalist cause. After our conference, Tang would ally himself with us. Soon after, the warmonger Liu Xiang, who had secured Sichuan for himself, would start a war against Beijing and us. While Beijing forces failed to penetrate into the Sichuan basin, we would swiftly cross the Yangtze and overrun Chongqing and Chengdu, securing Sichuan for ourselves. Now, with Sichuan secured and our economic situation stabilized, we would embark on major industrialization projects to strengthen ourselves. While we were busy building up, the north descended into anarchy, as the Beijing government would find itself surrounded by enemies. Fengtian, the Kuomintang, Hunan, and Anqing all took a piece of the pie that was once the dominant government in all of China, and so the decrepit Geely clique was no more. Soon after, Anqing and the Kuomintang would fight Fengtian together, as Zhang Zuolin wants to secure the entire country for himself. We took the opportunity and attacked Hunan. Their weak military stood no chance against us, and Hunan would quickly return to the federalist mantle. With that, the last vestiges of the Kuomintang have been let out. With the newly acquired regions, we can field an even bigger army. We shall use this newly expanded army to invade Anqing, as they are busy fighting the Fengtian in the north. Wuhan, the birthplace of the Xinhai Revolution, would become our new provisional capital. After taking control over the Mingan region, we would be approached by the center-left, who want Chen to let Li Zichen into our government. This could play into the DSP's hand, as they have limited allies in the military compared to the well-established army clique, who basically run the military. Li Zichen himself also hopes that we would allow some of his allies to enter the camp, figures like Chen Mingshu and Tan Pingshan, though they are not on the best of terms with Chen, and other party members eye them with suspicion. At the end, we decided to let them in, to strengthen ourselves for the biggest challenge yet, the Fengtian and their Japanese backers. It was decided Beijing is still in the hands of the Anguo Jun, so we must prepare for a final northern expedition. We have come far. At the beginning, our two provinces were poor, underdeveloped, and internally disunited. But look at us now. We are united, our movement has grown strong, and our army is numerous. But will it be able to deal with both the Fengtian and the Japanese? Well, time to find out. After fending off numerous Japanese invasions and securing delegation ports, we began our push north, and after a tense struggle, Beijing finally fell into our hands. This is the only good news, as our army is exhausted and overextended, not to mention the heavily destroyed industry in the north. To be able to continue the war of resistance, we must rebuild or else lose our gains and face destruction. After securing the north, many former Beijing factions have joined our ranks, parties new and old, one of which is the China Democratic League. They had formed from the corpse of the Federation of Chinese Democratic Parties, which had effectively dissolved after the Seven Gentlemen incident. Many in the China Democratic League demand for an immediate transition into a democracy. This, however, goes against Chen's own plan of a national reconstruction, and many in the PIP began criticizing them. These tensions, fueled by harsh words from both sides, would culminate in the DSP splitting from the PIP-dominated Grand Republican Alliance and joining the fledgling China Democratic League, becoming its biggest component. For Chen, it is currently impossible to implement democracy, especially since the country is still in an active war, but many press for a vote, as Chen had only been voted in by a small number that represented the South, especially now with the newly integrated northern territories. To decrease tensions, Chen and Zhang have agreed to meet in private, and in the end it was decided to hold general elections due to a growing demand for it. This, however, will pose a risk to the integrity of the Republic. As we still lack a constitution, the elections are defaulted to the old Beiyang system, so we must tread these elections carefully, as abusing this corrupt system of loopholes could result in democratic backsliding. Even though many parties participate, it is clear that none of them could match the big tents of the China Democratic League and the Grand Republican Alliance. It is more or less a competition between these two. The China Democratic League knows that their best chance at dethroning Chen is by electing Jiang Junmai to be their nominee for president. As for the Grand Republican Alliance, Chen is expected to run for re-elections, as he sees himself as the savior of China, but his age is beginning to wear him down, and he has been thinking of stepping aside in favor of his protege, Chen Chie. In the end, he decided to run as the Grand Republican Alliance's nominee, as a fresh start would be too risky now. The momentum is on the Grand Republican Alliance's side as the 6 months of campaigning begin. While elections are ongoing, our now reformed army is starting to push heavily into Manchuria and soon enough push the Japanese off the Korean peninsula. In the end, the Grand Republican Alliance survived its first nationwide election, and Chen Chongming is elected president. For now, the China Democratic League must remain on the backseat, but as the Grand Republican Alliance lacks a majority, it was decided in order to have a stable government, they would coalition with the China Democratic League for now, especially since we are still at war. Speaking of war, it is finally time to reclaim Taiwan. The island had been lost to Japan after the First Sino-Japanese War due to Qing incompetence. But after building up transport planes, our brave Chinese paratroopers landed on the island and easily dealt with the Japanese resistance, fully controlling the island. This sudden turn of events made the Japanese realize that they had lost the struggle and offered peace. So, the war of resistance has come to an end, and Japanese domination over China with it. With all the major cities in our hands and no other petty warlord claiming to be the rightful government of China, we would declare China unified. Just don't look at the Northwest. Now that China has been unified, it is finally time to draft a new constitution. China's attempts at constitutionalism have been rather rocky. Its first attempts were all the way back during the 100 Days Reform in the late Qing era, with the help of Liang Qichao and Kang Yaowei, before the conservative court faction, with the help of the Empress Dowager Cixi, staged a coup suppressing and reverting these radical reforms. After Xinhai, the initial constitution had been trampled on by Yuan Shikai, and the 1923 Tsar Kun constitution, though expansive and progressive, had rung hollow in the disunited China wrecked by warlordism. Now, China finally stands united, and it is up to us to finally bring true constitutionalism to China. The first topic on the agenda is the question of Chinese federalism. Should we have somewhat regional autonomy or fully grant the provinces autonomy from the central government? In the end, we chose provincial autonomy and renamed the country to the United Provinces of China. And to facilitate this change to the Chinese people and the outside world, we adopted the PIP party flag as the new official flag of China. We also will expand the National Assembly seats to a whopping 1000 seats to represent all the people who live in this vast country, and we shall also enact women's suffrage nationwide. In order to guarantee stability, the position of president shall be powerful, and the president will be elected directly by the people. And now, after lots of debates, the Constitutional Convention comes to a close, and before us now stands a new constitution for a new republic. Now, all that is left is to decide on a new capital. Nanjing shall be the new capital. The city was meant to be the original capital of the republic before Yuan Shikai moved the government north to Beijing due to emergencies. The city itself is in the center between north and south and sits at the mouth of the Yangtze, so geographically speaking, it is a very good place for a capital. Now that we have established our republic, it is time to fully unify China, as the Northwest is still independent from our government. Our first target was the Kuomintang, which surprisingly still held on in the Shanxi mountains. Their small army could not compare to ours, so they were quickly destroyed once and for all. For future preparation, we would also push in some reforms to safeguard the election progress, things like eliminating election fraud and normalizing political discourse, but most crucially, nationalizing the military, as giving the provinces their own army would just be a breeding ground for another warlord era. The mass of the Northwest and the governor of Xinjiang, Jin Shuren, would bow down to our new republic, and due to Russia being distracted by war, we would seize the chance and bring Mongolia and Tibet back under our fold. We would establish autonomous regions for both the Mongols and Tibetans in our republic. After fully integrating the Northwest, we would finally hold new elections. Now with our brand new constitution, Chen Zhongming has been delegating a lot of power to others during his presidency, as he finally seeks to retire due to his advanced age. Chen Zhongming's successor will be Chen Jie, but can this fresh face give the Grand Republican Alliance another term? The China Democratic League has grown in popularity as they pushed for a lot of their promises in the Grand Coalition, and Jiang Junmai himself seeks to finally dethrone the PIP and implement his socialist reforms in China. As the election campaigning begins, the initiative is with the China Democratic League. The Kuomintang, which had been allowed to operate, also participates in these elections under Wang Jingwei. However, the party is far from its heydays, so it is not expected to win much. Yet again, the parties heavily begin campaigning in the provinces to try and win over local seats and allies, especially now after all the reforms we have made. Political campaignings have a much greater impact than before, and due to all the restrictions we have imposed, the president and the military can no longer abuse their power to push the results in their way. After the 6 months of campaigning conclude, a new assembly is inaugurated, and the newly added presidential vote also concludes, and the results are Jiang Junmai, in a surprising turn of events, dethrones Chen's Grand Republican Alliance and secures the presidency for himself. The China Democratic League has completely destroyed its competition, controlling 389 seats. However, 500 seats are required to form a government, and so yet another grand coalition is formed between the Grand Republican Alliance and the China Democratic League, this time headed by the latter, of course. To start off Jiang Junmai's presidency, he will reorganize the DSP to better fit his vision of democratic socialism. Now that the elections have concluded, Chen Zhongming's legendary political career comes to a close, as he is now fully stepping down, and in a final address, he makes it clear that the spirit of democracy must be upheld. As none of the two big tent factions were able to entrench themselves, a careful balance has been established between them. A pluralistic democracy has been established, a multi-partisan democracy. Now it is our job to continue promoting democracy and making the Chinese people accept the Western concept of democracy that we want to bring to them. We shall guarantee absolute freedom in education and enshrine workers' protections. Externally, we would use the chaos the world finds itself in to establish an Asian federation. Conflict was brewing between us and the Indian Federation as they vie our territories along our border. In the end, we would be the ones launching the attack. Our army has come far and would end up overrunning India. Our next target was Russia, as they still held some regions we claim. As Russia was busy expanding their influence in the Middle East, they were not prepared for what was to come. We had quickly seized major parts in Siberia, and after a while, the Russians sued for peace, giving us back Tanutuva and Badakhshan. As our republic marches on, it is swept over by the idealism of the initial republic born from Xinhai. Now, the two leading figures, Zhang Junmai and Zhang Dongsun, lead the new republic into the future. Both share different but somewhat leftist-aligned goals. Zhang Junmai hopes to establish a social democratic state in the image of Liang Zhichao and the Social Democratic Party of Germany, while Dongsun hopes to establish his Guild Socialist utopian vision for China. But what would come of these ideas, and what will this future entail for the Republic of Yin and Yang? Well, only time can tell. With that, we have reached the end of our endeavor to establish democracy and federalism in China. From all the paths, I thought this was the most democratic ending, so I chose this specific path, and I hope you enjoyed the video, as I have worked very hard on this. I was very limited in time as I had exams and other things, but still tried to give as much of my time as possible to this. So, if you enjoyed it and want to see more videos like this, can guarantee, please like, subscribe, write a comment and share the video to all your friends and mates who could be interested, and also special thanks to the diligent and awesome China team and Kaiserreich in general for giving us this exciting and lore-heavy content for free. Appreciate it. This is all from me, so see you next time. Goodbye.